The meeting to order. This time I ask Commissioner Stewart to lead us in the invocation and the pledge.
Sure. Please stand and join me. Heavenly Father, again we come to you tonight, Lord, and ask you for your wisdom here to be upon us, Lord. I ask God that you protect our state, Lord, as we face this hurricane coming, Lord, to keep people safe. Lord, as we make preparations, Lord, I just ask that there be no harm to anyone in our state, Father. We ask that. Lord, we ask that you be here with us tonight. Grant us wisdom. We ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you all for coming out tonight. If you'd like to speak, you've got a citizens to be heard opportunity. You can speak at either the first one or the second one at your choice, and also on each individual agenda item. Please fill out a speaker card with Miss Patty over here for each item. At this time, do we have any changes to the agenda?
I'd like to pull consent item 16 off the agenda altogether. This is about Carmen Rico Lane. They were doing a voluntary assessment to improve their road to get it accepted. I did a little research, called Summer and talked to her. This is one of those subdivisions that was done back in the boom, and there was just nobody around to ask for the roads to be accepted. They were done to county standards, right, Summer?
Correct.
They were done assuming the county was going to take them over, so I think they should be treated just like we treated Mallard Pond, the Park subdivision, Farm Phase 2, all those ones where we adopted them all in a lump. David, somebody went and looked at the road, right?
And we had Justin Ford with Dewberry.
Okay, so my contention is they should be treated just like everybody else has been treated in the past. It was a county road. All they need to do is ask for the county to accept it for maintenance, and that's it. I don't think, they don't need to pay to have anything done or sign petitions or none of that kind of stuff. So David said he can take it from here and bring it back. And
Is it a paved road?
it's a paved road. 60-foot right-of-way, county right-of-way.
As long as it meets the standards.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There was just, we don't have a formal process to automatically adopt a road when the 2-year time period is up. And when the developer has gone off or bankrupt or whatever they've done, there's nobody to say, hey, county, we want you to take our road over. They just know there's a blue sign out there. They don't know that they could just ask the county to accept the road and it's done. So David's going to bring it back after with the formal process, right, David, of acceptance.
All right.
But we don't need to proceed with the consent agenda, which is have them petitions and all this other kind of jazz. This is not that case.
Very good.
But the right way right now is just to pull it off, and then we'll do all this discussion.
Exactly.
Pull it off all together.
Exactly.
Not pulling it for discussion.
Very simple when it comes back.
We have one walk-on item to amend Resolution 2017-39 to change the date for the USDA bond series, since there was a snafu with USDA sending your money to the wrong place.
And since that's just a minor change, can we throw that in the consent agenda?
You can.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Motion to approve the agenda is modified, even nobody else has any other stuff.
Do we have any?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Patty, citizens to be heard. Please give us your name and address when you come up. Mr. Dallas Marshall. Citizens to be heard? Okay. Oh,
We got one right here. He wants.
okay.
Go ahead, come on up.
She wants to switch this to...
You can fill it out after the fact.
Thank you.
Aye.
Give us your name and address.
David McQuarrie, 58 Royster Drive. First of all, I want to thank all you guys because I'm in the middle of developing a piece of property, and every time I've called on all 5 of you, you've shown up and helped me, and I'm very thankful for that. The only thing I'm here to talk about is the landscape ordinance, and I wish that you guys could come out in the next week or two and drive by and look at what I've done. And the only thing that I understand, and I agree with the landscape ordinance. I agree with buffers and landscaping, okay? But mine is a particular situation that I wish that you guys could address, because to me, just being sensible would be the answer on mine. I have a thick woods on my eastern boundary, and I had to put up a 1,200-foot fence for a buffer, which is fine. I agreed to that. Well, anyway, the silly thing is, it's thick and I can't even see my neighbors. But because of your ordinance, I had to put my pretty side of my fence facing the woods. So the deer and the turkey and everybody can see it, but not me. Then between the fence and the thick woods that I can't see through, I have to landscape. Now I'm getting a waiver, so hopefully that goes by the wayside, but I understand if I was downtown and then there was a residence next to me. I understand that, you know, putting a fence up and landscaping it for them. But whenever I have thick woods that I can't even see my neighbors, and I'm putting up a $15,000 fence, and now I'm spending $15,000 on landscaping, that's going to be between the fence and the woods that I'll hate to tell you, but I doubt if I water it. And it's just a waste of money and time. So that's all in my point. I think each situation should be looked at. I think you ought to have a little leeway in there for Summer or whoever to just be able to say, that's not necessary. I would rather landscape crepe myrtles on this side where my RVers can see the beautiful trees. So I just think my situation is just a little different. I agree with having the buffer. I agree with landscaping. But all I'm saying is my situation, I wish somebody could have come out and saved me $15,000 or told me to put them on the side that people will see. I don't think there'll be a person in the world to see my landscaping. So anyway, I want to thank y'all for everything.
Can I ask him a question?
Sure.
Let me ask you, you said you got a waiver?
I believe I do. It's got to go in front of you guys, which I think is silly too. All the neighbors signed off that it's silly. So the neighbors if the neighbors sign up, now one man is not feeling well, so I don't know. I mean, he may be really sick, so we can't get hold of him. But 4 of my neighbors have signed off. So
Waiver eliminate all the plants on the outside?
I think that's what, I don't know. You guys' law scares me. I mean, your ordinances scare me. I don't know.
Is that all of them? If they
I
agree?
haven't seen any waivers yet, but from the conversations I've had with Mr. McQuarrie, he's indicated that the neighbors are signing a waiver to allow him to install the landscaping on his side of the fence and not on both sides.
And that's allowable under the ordinance?
That will be subject to the board to approve since it was a condition of his approval for his PUD amendment.
I guess one of the things that bothers me is that Summer is she's going by the rules.
Yes.
And she has to do that.
Yes.
But somehow Summer should have an option of making a decision that doesn't make sense. In other words, when you're landscaping between your board fence and the tree line that you can't see through, somebody needs to be able to
Well,
make a decision.
and she does that normally, and this was a condition of the PUD. So this is a little different than just the typical landscape ordinance.
All right.
I think after, Jerry, I think after she explained to me, she's right. It was a condition of my approval, so I agreed with her after that. But I'm saying for future, I mean, I've already bit the bullet.
I agree with you, and we're talking about the future.
That's right. We're talking about the future. Yeah, we've got that, and she does that on the regular.
Yeah.
But this was hard and fast as a part of
Okay,
the
well,
PUD.
he just said that whatever.
Right.
But, yeah, I want to see any developer or any person who thinks one of our rules or regulations is crazy, bring it to this board. Because the 5 of us, 3 of us can change that rule. We can do it. And we can do it pretty much on any night you bring it to us. So if you got a problem with our rules, and I have a lot of problems with them, bring it to us and let us make a change.
Let me say one other thing, and just
Bring it into a landing, though. We're not.
all right, I'm so sorry. But listen,
Fine.
one last thing is I went out there because I had to and did a tree survey. Well, I left every tree. I think I took down 4 or 5 trees that were just in the way. But I saved hundreds of trees. And I did not want to cut down a tree because of RVers want trees. Well, I think it's extremely silly that even though I paid $2,500 for my tree survey, I now have to have, I mean, I don't know, but I got I think 64 3 caliper 80 gallon or 30, I don't know what it is, But, and then I got to also have around 200 plants. I mean, I don't know what I saved by doing, I mean, that's a lot of plants.
By doing the survey, you're saying
Yeah,
even
yeah.
existing trees didn't save you very much?
No, I don't, and I don't think so. I mean, we may differ, but I don't think I got a break. I went out there and said, let's do a tree survey, pay $2,000, $2,500 for the surveyor. Next thing I know is I'm putting a lot of plants out there.
I'll tell the other commissioners, and I've told some of this, one of the crazy things about the landscape ordinance is that you have to do a tree survey to get credits for trees that you want to keep. But you can absolutely you can cut every one of those trees down and come back and meet the requirements of the ordinance. The tree survey doesn't say that you have to save those trees. It'll give you credit. What developer in his right mind would not want to save a tree that gives him credit? But the way we're working it is that we have to do a tree survey. But I can go in and do the tree survey and come back and cut every tree down.
But the survey may minimize what you have to replace.
I think Ralph's
It
gonna
can
talk
if
about
I
this
want to
under
keep
discussion.
those trees.
Yeah.
It can if I want to keep those trees. And if those trees are pretty and they're not in my way, then I want to keep them.
Well, at our next meeting, I've got an agenda item to discuss issues in the landscape. Didn't address his particular items, but hopefully we'll take a look at that and see if we can make some changes. All right, that's all our citizens to be heard. We'll go into public hearing, item number 1.
You started off, Ralph.
All right, this is the first of 2 required public hearings on the Wakulla County budget for fiscal year 2017-2018. If you wish to speak during the public hearing portion of the meeting, please step forward at the appropriate time. The tentative aggregate millage rate is 8.0351 mills, which is equal to the aggregate rolled back millage rate of 8.0351 mills. Now the county administrator will read the tentative millage rate into the public record.
The proposed Board of County Commissioners of Wakulla County tentative countywide millage rate is at 8.0351 mills, which equal to the countywide rollback millage rate of 8.0351 mills.
I'm opening up the floor for a motion to begin the public hearing.
Motion to begin public hearing.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. At this time, the individuals that have turned in a speaker card to the clerk are allowed to speak.
They're already there.
Patty? None? Okay. Is there a motion to close the public?
So
hearing?
move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Florida statutes require the board to address the tentative millage rate before addressing the tentative budget. The board must vote on the millage rate and the budget separately. I will now entertain the following motions. 1, approve the Board of County Commissioners FY 2017-2018 tentative countywide millage rate of 8.0351 mills.
So move.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Any citizen? Well, no, we passed that point. Further discussion from the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Second, approve the Board of County Commissioners FY 2017-2018 tentative countywide budget as presented by the administrator on July 14, 2017, and as amended through the agenda process today.
So move.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion?
Didn't we talk about, RH had made that request, David? What did we decide to do on that?
I talked to him, and if he needs the funding, he can prove that he needs the funding. As far as $10,000, then we can make that
That was
during
the
the
budget
year.
amendment.
That's right.
So we're not going to address it in the budget this time.
We don't need to address it right now.
We did look into it. We didn't ignore it.
That's right. He was okay with that.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. The second and final public hearing for approval of the final millage rate and budget will be held on Monday, September 18, 2017 at 5:01 p.m. That ends item number 1. Item number 2, public hearing.
This is your annual public hearing to adopt the annual rate resolution for your solid waste services assessment. The amount in here is $196 per dwelling unit, which is the same as last year and same as your
Motion to approve.
preliminary.
Second.
Motion and second. Any citizens? Discussion from the board. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0.
When's that contract run out?
It's a 10-year
21,
term.
21, 22?
You don't need to worry about that, Jerry.
You know today's Jerry's birthday, right?
Is it Jerry's birthday?
Yeah.
I won't ask how old you are, Jerry, but happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Jerry. Item number 3.
This is your annual public hearing to approve the annual rate resolution for the fire services assessment. The rates within this resolution are proposed to be $99 per dwelling unit, .1164 per square foot for non-residential, and .2184 for land per acre.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second. Any citizens? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0.
That solves that problem.
Item number 4.
This is your annual public hearing to adopt the annual rate resolution for the Northwood subdivision. This was an old road paving project that's being paid back to the county.
I'll make a motion to approve number 4 and 5, since they're both old road paving projects. Can I do that, Heather?
You could take them both together if it's
One's
the will of the
Tupelo and
Tupelo,
one's
Northwood.
Wood.
Second.
Motion second. Any citizens on either? Discussion from the board. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item number 6.
Yes, this is a request for the board's approval to conduct the first of 2 required public hearings regarding an ordinance amending the Land Development Code pertaining to medical marijuana dispensing facilities. This ordinance is drafted consistent with newly adopted state law, which requires local governments to treat medical marijuana dispensing facilities the same as pharmacies. This would allow those dispensaries to be located in C2 and C3 zoning districts and prohibit them to be located within 500 feet of a school. The final public hearing for this item is scheduled to occur on September 18th, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Motion to approve. Only other option is we can outlaw them altogether in the county.
Right.
Correct.
Doesn't matter to me, so.
Well, got a lot of voters voted for that. Motion second. Any citizens? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. All right. That ends our public hearings. So next we'll go to awards and presentation. We'll hear from Mr. Jacob Ross, Congressional Liaison with Citizens Climate Lobby. Welcome, sir.
Chairman Thomas and members of the Commission, I'm very honored to be here and speak with you today. And I also wanted to thank you for all of your work. Spearheading efforts like the SLRS and the new fire station are critical pieces of infrastructure, especially as Florida enters times like we're in right now. So I really wanted to thank you sincerely for your efforts. My name is Jacob Ross. I was an account representative for a component distributor for 4 years before coming to Florida State University to study political science and economics. And I've been working with Republican members of Congress for the past 2 years on conservative solutions to carbon pollution. Now, I wanted to assure you all today that I'm here to talk about solutions. I'm not really interested in trivial scientific facts. So hopefully what I have to say today will be of benefit to you and your county. So there are 3 parts to my presentation today. I would like to discuss a solution called carbon fee and dividend, which is a viable conservative solution to carbon pollution. I would like to speak with you about some of the particular risks in Wakulla County. And then to follow up, I would like to give you some reasons that myself and some other of your constituents would like to meet with you in the future to continue this conversation. So this is the carbon fee and dividend system, pretty much outlined. There will be a steadily rising fee on CO2 content of fossil fuels. Secondarily, all the revenue from the carbon fee will be given back to households. There will be a border adjustment so we can encourage firms to stay here in the United States and also encourage U.S. competitiveness. And lastly, this is a great thing for the economy. I would just like to share a little bit of the genesis of this policy. I personally am opposed to regulation as it places undue burden on local economies. And a cap and trade system that has been considered before has been found to set up an artificial market. So many conservative thought leaders are in agreement that this is actually a market-based system that sends a clear price signal and makes it easy for firms to anticipate future market fluctuations. Specifically, support for carbon fee and dividend. This is the big point here. I went ahead and looked at some of the U.S. Census Bureau data for Wakulla County and found the following major sectors here. And a report by Regional Economic Modeling Incorporated has found that above the baseline, when we implement a system such as carbon fee and dividend, we actually see some growth. You can see in administration alone, there's a $4.28 billion growth over baseline.
I knew David had a lot of employees over there. Randy.
And there's projected national employment growth. So these are some solid numbers that show that even as we approach this problem with some viable solutions, we can still continue to grow the economy and Wakulla's economy. There we go. I found this particularly compelling. Citizens Climate Lobby has won the endorsement of the National Small Business Network. And being from St. Petersburg myself, when our city government had to spend $300-some million on stormwater systems, I became even more concerned about this issue. Because as we look at the costs of not doing things, citizens like myself are the ones who have to pay the taxes to pay for those stormwater systems and pay for the infrastructure. And I feel like this summarizes really well exactly my concern and many people's concerns. Just as borrowing against the future is bad fiscal policy, compromising the country's physical environment and future economy for short-term gain is bad national policy. Unless we act soon to identify and reduce potential damage, the long-term cost of paying off our environmental deficit may be even greater and more economically damaging than the consequences of our fiscal deficit. And this is directly from the National Small Business Network. Amazingly, Congress should enact a revenue-neutral carbon emissions adjustment fee to provide a simple market-based solution for emissions reductions. Here's some additional financial incentive. The World Health Organization has found that by the year 2030, citizens like myself and all of you in this room, we'll be paying an additional $2 to $4 billion per year for the health impacts of carbon pollution. The World Economic Forum has also identified climate change as a top economic risk globally and has also identified it as a key linkage with 4 other global risk factors. And this is just a visual that you can see where some of the climate issues such as extreme weather events and things of that sort are connected to the economy as a whole globally. So the second thing that I wanted to bring up was particular risks to this county. So according to the Florida Department of Agriculture, there's about $2.5 million in GDP here in freshwater and seafood harvestries. And the risk due to the reduction of wetlands and changes in spawning seasons will affect seafood output here. So there is a risk there for food security. Also, your forests. Increasing the vulnerability of many forests to ecosystem changes and tree mortality through fire, insect infestations, drought, disease, and such things such as that. And this is directly from the U.S. Forest Service. And if you guys would like to speak with me about any of the citations on this, these are mostly these are sound consensus-based decisions here. Lastly, the risk to this county in particular is the risk for inland flooding. There's an imminent threat to inland flooding and continued stress to stormwater systems as we see an increase in Category 4 to 5 hurricanes. As we see sea level coming up, we're going to see increased insurance premiums. This is going to stress residents even further as they try and move inland. So there's quite a few effects just from this flooding alone. So the final point that I would like to make, in addition to the economic support for this national policy solution, in addition to the particular risk factors that you guys face here, is just an appeal to be able to speak with you guys, with constituents in Wakulla who are also concerned about this issue so that we can start a conversation. And here's some support for why we might want to do this. 48 local governments already support carbon fee and dividend, and it's in their best interest to do so. Recent polling by George Mason University also shows that 70% of all registered voters support a revenue-neutral carbon fee system. And Republican statesmen such as George Shultz James Baker III, and our current Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, do support a revenue-neutral carbon fee, and they have spoken with President Trump about that as well. And finally, this graphic, I'm very proud of this. This is a lot of my colleagues have been working very hard on this for several years. The Bipartisan Climate Solutions Caucus in the House of Representatives is a equal caucus of 26 Republicans and 26 Democrats who are doing the very thing that I'm asking you guys to do today, which is speak with constituents who are concerned about solutions. We're less interested in partisan bickering, and we're more interested in actually delivering results, fiscal and economic results, for your citizens and constituents. And that's what's happening in Congress, and we would like to extend that conversation here. Thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
So basically, correct me if I'm wrong, you're proposing to increase the fuel tax and then take the money raised and give it back to homeowners?
I'm not sure if you would exactly call it a fuel tax, but essentially what will happen is there will be a fee placed on the carbon content of any energy source. So we're not singling out a particular energy source, but yes, that revenue would go back as a dividend check directly to households.
So that could affect also electricity for, heat, air conditioner, But so basically any fuel source would be taxed at a higher rate, paid by our citizens, and then we're going to turn around and give the money back to the citizens, minus what we collect for the people that are just passing through here that would not.
This may fall into that other meetings part.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure I understand it.
Absolutely, and I appreciate the question because it is a kind of complicated mechanism to think through, and I think when it comes to the core of it, my particular goal was not just to come in here and say, hey, let's just talk about this. I wanted y'all to know that I've done some research. So to that end, this is one particular option that you might choose and your commission might choose to advocate for. But essentially, yes. I can tell you based on my studies, this sends a clear price signal which shifts incentives for people to choose cleaner forms of energy. But it doesn't unnecessarily penalize fossil fuel producers. In fact, I can share some information with you in the future if you'd like, where many extraction companies have actually endorsed this policy mechanism because not only does it improve the economy, but it gives them a clear policy to work with so they can actually anticipate future demand.
So instead of a tax, it would come back to citizens, and the idea here is that you would be encouraged then to get your power from solar, wind, and you wouldn't have the tax in those power sources.
So people like St. Mark's Powder, I assume they consume a lot of electricity. They would be collecting or paying a large amount of this tax. Would that be correct? A manufacturing facility that's running shifts around the clock and
something of that sort. There are, depending on the level of energy intensity that a particular corporation is using, that could be the case. However, when you look at the projections for 2035, which I showed you guys the comparison to the baseline, some of what you see is an extreme uptick in overall GDP because you have firms that are going to increase investment in new technologies. So this is really a mechanism that is palatable politically to achieve the ends that voters are already asking for, which is increased wind capacity, increased solar capacity. So although, yes, I cannot be dishonest with you and say that there will not be very marginal short-term costs, the benefits of a policy such as this are going to exponentially outweigh the marginal cost in the short term.
So if this is done to deal with climate change, and so we're basically saying, well, let's give our citizens a little bit of money to make them feel better about the climate change, right? Because I think Chuck pointed out that there would be an incentive to try to shift to
Yes.
less fossil fuel intensive, but that's often difficult in a rural county like this. It's not like we're going to put up a nuclear plant for St. Mark's Powder, so they're just going to be passing that tax on to their consumers. So I don't really see the big offenders in our county, and I don't see how it solves anything other than passes out money that we've collected from them to start with.
And valid argument, and these are all things that, as I've worked with representatives such as yourself, we have not disagreed on. We have instead looked at the data and also spoken directly with your constituent groups to say, let's have them make the decision. Instead of having us up here sitting at the desks, planning all of this, that's why I'm here in front of you today, because I'm doing the same thing in the community. So if we can speak with the commission and you all about constituent groups such as those that you mentioned that will be impacted by this policy, mostly positively, that we are sure to secure either their endorsement before we move forward and make the decision on our own. And I would be more than happy to work with you all as we continue that conversation as well.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Well, realize it does have an advantage that it incentivizes being more efficient with your power and moving to alternative energy sources.
Which is exactly what we're doing with the PST.
Oh.
No.
It is.
I don't think he's going to agree with you on that one.
I don't think so.
But I think to a business, saving money is all the incentive we need to conserve our energy. I mean, that's,
You're right. Live off grid, you don't
yeah,
pay
I
nothing.
mean, you can't tax them into saving their own money. They want to save their own money anyway.
All right.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you
Very
coming
welcome.
down.
Thank you.
Robbie, don't go back and start a rumor that the board's gonna raise a fuel tax. We ain't doing that. He just walked in off the street, and I know what he's thinking. You guys are crazy.
That ends our awards and presentation. Do we have a motion to approve the consent
So moved.
agenda as modified? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. All right. General business, item number 22.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this agenda item request board approval of decision points presented at the September 6th, today's workshop, to discuss our discussion of the Restore Act multi-year implementation.
Motion to
plan.
approve the MYIP framework process and schedule, approve the objectives and additional criteria, approve the ranking system, and approve the use of Restore Act Pot 1 funding for county projects exclusively and include those approved at the March 6, 2017 board meeting for Restore Act Gulf Consortium funding Pot 3 and do not subgrant any Restore Act funds. Did y'all get that?
Second.
Motion second. Any citizens? Discussion from the board. We just discussed it for 2 hours.
2 hours, I should say.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Move to planning and zoning, item number 20.
This is an application for a change of zoning, R1707. The applicant or the owner is Golden Construction. In accordance with Section 24.01 of the code, each commission member needs to disclose any contacts they may have received from interested parties. Commissioner Hess?
Yes, Dallas Marshall.
None.
That's the next
Other one.
The
This
first
is
one.
Robbie.
No, none.
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 No, Robbie, I don't think we talked about this. did we? I didn't talk to you about this.
What I'm wanting to do is...
Hold on.
I didn't talk to you about this project.
He's asking.
No. I couldn't remember.
I didn't feel like I needed to.
Okay, thank you. If there's anyone here who's going to provide any information, including the applicant, please stand up to be sworn.
That's you, Robbie.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second. Any citizens?
Robbie, you got all dressed up for nothing. Look at you.
And the,
Had your new flip-flops on and everything.
since Summer didn't get to explain it, the staff report is a part of the record.
I'll adjust my motion to include staff report then.
It's, well, it's nice for the citizens to know what's going on. It's a change of zoning inside our town plan to make it
Not
allow-
increase in density.
not increase in density. So,
Any citizens? Further discussion?
Amber?
Hear none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, sir.
Y'all can go back.
Item number 21.
Okay, this is an application for a change of zoning, R1708. This is Dallas Marshall's Coastal Highway RV Park LLC. If you've had any communications with interested parties, now is the time. And if you could just say who and briefly what it was. Okay.
Yes, I forget one of the three I talked to. I forget which one. Tim.
We got an email from Miss Val Lahart. That's the only I've had.
That's included in the public record though, right? That's not
Yeah.
something we need to disclose unless you got a personal one.
I assume it came to all of us.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I also talked to Dallas.
I think only the emails all. I don't think I spoke to any of you guys.
I may have talked to Dallas, I don't remember, but I'll go ahead and disclose it just in case.
Okay. If there is anyone here who is going to provide any information on this application, please stand up to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
This request for rezoning is for a 10.71 acre parcel located on in the Tarpine subdivision on the west side of Coastal Highway 98. This is from C2 General Commercial to CTTP Commercial Travel Trailer Park. The Planning Commission considered this request for rezoning at their public meeting on August 28th and voted unanimously to recommend approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. We have one citizen, Mr. Dallas Marshall.
I'm here to answer any questions.
Good answer.
Address any concerns.
Thank you, sir. Further discussion?
Okay. Now, this is a good place for an RV park, so I'm not opposed to the RV park, but I do have a concern, and I'm not sure how we want to address this, but my concern is that we want to make sure these RV parks stay RV parks and not become permanent housing. And while we currently have our ordinance says that they have to be moved every 6 months, we have no mechanism to enforce that ordinance. And so I'm coming, as far as this goes, that's great. This is what we want. We want to have tourists. We want to have tourists coming here. We want to have this kind of business, but we need to make sure it stays this kind of business. And we need to come up with something to do that.
Any ideas, suggestions?
Well, you have to have some type of code enforcement mechanism so that it goes out and makes sure that these people, the operators of these facilities are having these people move on a regular basis.
Some sort of log book or something?
I think if we send it to planning and zoning and have them come up with a system to do it, I just think we need to come up with a system.
I think Heather has a...
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that this is a good discussion to have, but probably not within the record for this item. Maybe we could, but you just said that you were
We wouldn't fix that in the zoning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I agree.
But
I
I'm
agree.
just trying to get a head nod for
I want to do that.
I mean, so for Summer to come back and
Bring it up under discussion and we'll get you ahead.
bring up something. Okay.
All right, further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. That ends our planning and zoning. No scheduled commissioner agenda items. County Attorney.
Nothing tonight.
County Administrator.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we need to, we had planned on having a community center workshop on September 18th. We'd like to request the board to move that back. We've got some additional information that we need to look over, and we're just not quite ready for it. We'd like to recommend that for October 16th at 3 o'clock, if at all possible. Is that okay with the board?
Is that Monday before a meeting?
That's Monday before meeting, yes, sir.
Works for me.
Same day as a meeting. What was the workshop?
Community center workshop. Okay.
I would. If you guys could vote on that.
So moved. Second.
A motion, second discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Passes 5-0.
Next is, just to let the community know, as you know, we have Hurricane Irma is bearing down on South Florida. We're continuing, myself and staff, as well as the Sheriff's Department and our emergency management folks, we're continuing to monitor it. The storm, we encourage our citizens. We post everything on Facebook. We have different outlets. We have Alert Wakulla app that you can get through our for emergency, that'll update you through emergency action on emergency actions. You can get that through the WCSO website. We encourage all the citizens to stay attuned to radio, television, etc. Right now, we're just in the monitoring mode. We've already done some preliminary preparations, but other than that, that's where we are with the storm.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Citizens be heard, second one. None. Discussion items. Chuck? I think we started with you last time.
Just
didn't
that. I don't. Basically, we need to have some ordinance or some mechanism to enforce our ordinance on 6 months for travel RV sites. They can only be in a site for 6 months, and they have to move on to the next site. It encourages tourists. I mean, when I did it and went into a site that had just, people living there full-time, all you want to do is leave as quickly as possible. And we want to try to make this for tourists coming in and shopping and living and enjoying our community.
So your suggestion is to have staff,
Have staff come back with some way to
Something?
enforce it.
even if it's not perfect, better than what we have now?
Better than what we have now. We have no code enforcement on this issue right now.
Is that something you can do, Summer?
Yep, staff can develop something.
I think it's a good
I'll
idea.
consider that a head nod then?
Is that a motion? We need to vote on it? Or not?
I'm probably not going to support it because I think it's going to encourage people just to move from one spot to another spot, and then they start over with another 6 months. And I don't know. To me, it's a nightmare. Just one more thing to keep up with, and one more thing to police. And I'd like to see if like you say, it hampers business and serious RVers wanting to stay there, then the RV park owners are going to make that decision.
You would be true, but what you're going to end up though is some of the RV parks are going to fail, not do as well as others, and there's the ones that this becomes a problem in.
Yeah.
And it's typical across the state. You see it everywhere.
If it's not unanimous though right now, I would suggest bring it back as an agenda item. Heather, would you agree with that?
Well,
To give staff direction.
Yeah, it would have to come back as
It's obviously not unanimous, so I would bring it back as an agenda item.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you, so.
I'm supportive of it, only because I'm an RVer and I have seen some bad RV parks that allow people. And I think we can build in something that says, even if you move spots, you can't do it for 30 days. You got to leave and then you can come back, get another spot, or you go back at that same spot, but you got to have some mechanism. Otherwise, we have seen them where they build on and they end up with the whole place it looks like it's a mess. So,
I understand the rationale. To me, it's more government, more regulations. It's okay though. It's okay.
Only need 3 votes.
That's right.
We only agree on everything.
Anything further?
Nope.
I have nothing.
I'm bringing back, as I mentioned earlier, a proposal to make some changes to the landscape ordinance. I sent out a copy in case you guys want to discuss it if you've had a chance to look at it. My points in there is to try to put an incentive to encourage use of local businesses.
I got grief with that, Ralph.
Okay.
I understand why you're doing it, but let's say I want to buy all my plants from Ace Hardware.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have any of the plants on that list. They have other plants. That puts Summer in a position now that she has to decide that those plants are okay. And my goal in life has been to not put more decision-making powers in staff, because I was staff. I had Cleve's job.
No, you did.
Okay?
Did he?
The more you write it down clearly in regulations, it's not that Summer doesn't have to think, but she doesn't have to be put on the spot. Here's what it says. Here's what you got to do. Period. Amen. The end. And let me just read. I don't need to read it to you, obviously, because you wrote it. But what it says, if the property owner chooses a particular species that meets the requirement, that's not it, is it? Local procurement.
That's the 4-foot separation. I talked to someone.
Wait, hold on. If the property owner chooses a particular species that meets requirements of this code, but is unable to meet the minimum height and/or diameter requirements while utilizing local procurement, the planning director is authorized to allow reduction in height and/or diameter requirements to accommodate local availability. Particular species that meets the requirements of the code. See what I'm saying? I mean, everybody that's local buys theirs from a nursery. They don't. Nobody grows
Everything's available, that's the problem.
plants here.
So you made the point about looking at specific plants, but our ordinance as it is written now has a list of trees and plants, but it says it's a guide, so it's not an all-inclusive list. There's not a, she wouldn't have to look at that and say, well, that's not on the list, so you can't do it, because it's simply a guide. It could choose a tree that's not on the list, and as long as it's similar to what is on the list, then it's fine. So I don't think she would have to get into specific species, My point is we shouldn't have to send people looking all over the world. If they want to go hire Purple Martin Nursery, and surely Purple Martin doesn't grow all these trees, so if they're buying them from a wholesaler out of state, that's their business model, and they're doing that. So I think all we'd have to do is just show that she's using a local business, and my proposal is just to decrease, just allow flexibility if they can't reach that size. I talked to Summer about possibly doing an alternative where we get rid of the 8-foot requirement and maybe bring it down to 6, or bring the 2.5-inch diameter
down
to 2.
She said she was fine with that.
So that's my goal, is to just give more flexibility that, if you can't get a crepe myrtle that's 8 feet tall and you end up putting in a loblolly pine because you can get it 8 feet tall, I mean, what have we really achieved, And so that's...
She said she was fine with the reduction, but let me go back to another one. And I just thought this was a good point. Species at maturity or diameter greater than 4 feet may be planted further apart to allow... I don't think that's crazy.
I think she agreed with that one. She allows clustering now, and the way I read it, it would be clustering. That
Okay, and I got no problem with that. Now, the suitable ground covers may also be utilized in perimeter landscape areas in lieu of shrubs or commercial grasses. I don't want to get to a point where somebody puts sod down. That means they don't have to put plants.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking more things like border grass, monkey grass, liriope. As it stands now, there's a provision for that. There's a description for that, but there's no credit for it. If someone wanted to, put a quarter acre of liriope out there, there's no credit for that. There's no incentive.
I'm not sure how problematic the local procurement is. Of course, I support local businesses, of course, but I don't know how hard that would be to implement.
That's a big reduction in a landscape plan, so that's a big reduction. That's my only...
Yeah.
That's a big reduction, and you're stripping your landscape plan at that point.
So if we've got someone that's developing an acre and they got to put in 100 trees, and instead they can shop local and put in 80 trees, are we really going to see it? I'm not talking about reducing the amount of money coming to taxpayers. I'm not talking about driving up any cost to the county. I'm talking about they can make that decision. And I'm using a local company, and I can take it's no different than us giving a reduction in parking spaces.
Well, but the problem's going to be this, is all of a sudden you're putting on staff. We have to say, number one, Summer's going to say, is this locally procured, and what was the plan before? So that means it's got to get redrawn. And
I could get in the landscape business and sub it all out to somebody else.
Yeah.
And you say, you're paying me to do it. I'm just going to sub.
Well, that goes with any
well,
business,
all of it,
but
everybody
that doesn't mean
buys
that you're the
out.
most competitive. They may go outside the county because they're more competitive.
Well, there's nothing, everybody here buys from nurseries like Halsey. Everybody. There's nobody that grows locally.
Well, I mean, if we can change the 8 foot to 6 and 2.5 to 2, I think we can probably achieve
That's
the
right.
same thing.
And I think that gets where you want to go.
And one thing I would like to include, and then I'll let you talk, Summer, is I really would like to have more encouragement to keep existing trees. If we need to beef up the credits somehow, let's do it. And Summer, you said you were in agreement.
I am, and I actually, if you guys don't mind, if you'll let me, if the board's amenable to this, in lieu of Commissioner Chairman Thomas's agenda item next month, if you would give me a few weeks and let me prepare some changes based on, input that I've received from citizens over the last year or two, input that I've received from each of you fellas on the board. I've got several ideas floating around that I think can accommodate a multitude of things. So I'd be happy to prepare a draft and an agenda item that kind of spells out the differences in what we have now and what I'm proposing, and then maybe you guys can throw darts at that and
all right, you got my head nod on that one.
Instead of just piecemealing
I'm
it.
good with that. The only other thing I'd like to mention is obviously there's a battle over whether or not a palm tree is a tree or whether it's grass. And
I want to put the palm tree in your ordinance.
I do too. I think we ought to have full credit for it. If it's a 14-inch tree, give them
Well, I'm going to disagree with this, except for the coastal communities, because the coastal communities, that's where palm trees are supposed to be, and that's where they work, and that's where they're storm resistant. But in our community here in Crawfordville, we want to have shade trees. We want to have trees that go out and give you shade, and that's what we want to have our community. That's what will make our community beautiful. As far as the coast goes,
let me answer his point, because I agree and I'm fine with that. And the way our ordinance is written right now, it has a category for shade trees, and it has a category for understory trees. So what I'm proposing is giving a 1-for-1 credit as a palm tree as an understory tree. So not replacing the shade tree. The shade tree requirement would still be there, and whether somebody puts in a 10-foot tall palm tree or a 10-foot tall crepe myrtle, we're not going to use either one of those as a shade tree. I'm saying give them the flexibility that if they want to put in look at our county, they're all over. People have landscaped with them all
What
over.
about backyard?
You know, I mean, you
Cabbage palm.
can look at the north part of the county, as far as you can get from the coast. I can take you and show you where there's palm trees there. So, I mean, it's a natural part of the ecosystem here, so I don't know why. And some people want to use them and some people don't. I'm just saying give them the flexibility, so if they do, they get the full credit. If they put in a 10-inch oak tree or a 10-inch palm tree, they get the same credit.
The very first thing the state does when they build an access road or a park, when you come into the state, the very first thing they do is plant palm trees.
Yeah.
I mean, at the state line, they start planting palm trees. I come down from North Carolina. When I come into Florida, I expect to see a palm tree.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's just like a clear stream in the mountains. You go to the mountains, you want to see a clean, clear stream,
Yeah.
a waterfall. But when you come into Florida, you want to see a palm tree.
Sure. Now, I'm not saying a palmetto should be
So,
classified as a
if
palm
you did
tree.
this, would all of our canopy trees in here all of a sudden become palm trees because they can make their tree inches off of palm trees?
I would say no, and listening to the chairman's suggestion of, maintaining the integrity of requiring the shade trees and allowing palm trees as an understory, we could allow, let's say, a 10 for 10-inch credit on the palm trees, but maybe we compromise and limit the number of overall tree inches that they can get with those credits. If they want to do, 10 palm trees, maybe they only get 50 inches of credit. And they can do
But,
more
okay.
than what's required.
They do 100 inches of palm trees. They no longer have any responsibility to put.
Why did Chuck hate
I
palm
would
trees?
I would say that that if they're going to use that, then you do that as an addition to your shade tree inch requirement.
Picked on by palm.
As long as it's in addition to the shade tree inch.
And I think that's
I'm
what
not
I've heard
proposing
the
any
chairman
changes to
suggest.
eliminating or minimizing the shade trees at all.
The shade tree
So I
is
think we could
the
come up with a
most important thing
compromise.
for our community to keep it attractive.
I agree.
And people to come in and want to get out of their cars.
Exactly. I agree.
If
We're on
you
the same page.
if you make palm trees a shade, and get rid of our shade trees, you're in trouble.
Chuck
No,
got
I
beat up by a
totally
palm
agree.
tree when he
If
I
you
got
see
a-
me laying under a shade tree, I'm probably at Shell Point. I'm nowhere else.
I have a riddle for summer.
Uh-oh.
Don't do it, Jerry. Think hard about it.
The state comes down the right of way, and they take significant trees that I was going to get credit for. What happens? I've got the prettiest.
for them now.
I was going to say, you better get credit for them now.
I have.
Sell them. You need to sell them
I
to them.
have. They're not good, but they just fire. They just fire bullet. But really, I've got beautiful live oaks at Ivan Church, and I'm afraid the state's going to come down through there and start pulling them out.
That needs to be part of your settlement offer. If they're
That's
taking it
correct.
right away,
Is
they're
have
taking
them
it.
mitigate the cost to replace the landscaping.
Replace them, so get settlement on it.
Yeah, exactly. Make them pay for the new ones.
Money doesn't grow on
Okay,
trees.
so
except
we'll
in
wait
this
till
case.
you can
Really
get to
does
it.
grow on
I
trees.
appreciate that.
Appreciate that.
I got so excited about the Restore Act that I forgot to add on that additional criteria that everybody agreed to. So, but I need to put it in the form of a motion, right? Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to add under the additional criteria that a project that mitigates repetitive damage or repetitive pollution.
Second.
Citizens didn't know about that ahead of time, but you're welcome to speak if you like.
And I know what I'm talking
Further
about?
discussion?
Okay.
Hear none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Passes 5-0.
I don't have anything else. Motion to adjourn.
Thank you very much. We stand adjourned. Thank you for coming out tonight.
Bad at all.